Hello everyone, and I'm very happy to have with me a proud Amazonian, Dr. Kavan Parikh. He secured an All India rank 21 in NEET PG 2020. Heartiest congratulations, Kavan.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It's a dream come true.
And it's a pleasure to have you back in the in the studio. In fact, I would just share a small journey of Kavan here. Kavan has been our student for a quite long time. He's done his foundation classes, and then he's done his T&D classes. Not just that, he appeared for NEET PG exam last year as well. And he was a top ranker then as well. He was All India rank 18 last year.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is awesome. And now you must be wondering, then why did he give the exam again? So he secured a very good rank. He picked up the seat as well. And I think I will leave that part of the journey for Kavan to share. Why did he do this again? So Kavan, maybe a small introduction to your journey.
So my journey after rank 18 last year, I would just summarize with one line that sometimes a good rank or a very good rank makes it even more difficult for a student to make choices. And if he or she is not clear with what he wants or what suits his personality, then it might lead to an error like what happened with me. But in a way, it gives you more sense of understanding regarding the subjects also, regarding your own self also, and what you want to pursue in future. And indirectly, I got a chance to be with all 19 subjects for one more year, and my subjects are strengthened even more. So and that's the good part of it.
And you know, the beauty of it, why I wanted him to share his journey is that he left his PG seat in the middle of the year. Which was July?
May.
In May, he dropped back from his PG seat. And it could have been a big setback for him. Yes. And it could have a lasting impact on him. And the reason I wanted to share this part of his journey is that despite what happened for him, right, he didn't find the place and the branch to suit him. He left it, and despite all these odds, he managed to get back again with the same enthusiasm, and now I think more of as a challenge to replicate his rank again in this year exam. And he has very little options as far as picking up a seat again. So he knew he has to be in the top ranks to get the branch of his choice, which we will talk about further on.
Yes,
and so despite all these setbacks, he started in the middle of the year to sort of get back into the preparation mode and achieve what he wants to achieve. And so that is something to learn from him. And I will want to really ask you, Kavan, kyunki it is also a mental
trauma.
Yes. So how did you sort of come out of it? So, and how did you muster the courage to start all over again?
So first of all, I would just say that I don't wish it happens to any one of you, those who are going to take a seat this year. But if in case it happens that you are not able to settle with the place or branch that you choose, then take some time to decide. And once if you are convinced that you will not be able to pursue at that particular place or in that branch, then don't listen to anyone. Just listen to yourself, and just be clear that life gives you n number of opportunities, so it's not the end. And when you start preparation, the first thing that should be in your mind is that it was you who had taken, maybe by mistake, it was you now who have left it. It's not because of any external factor. And again, it is you who will have to prove yourself that I am capable of getting what I want again, second time also. And once if you achieve it for the second time, you will automatically prove yourself right in the decision of leaving a particular branch or college.
Yes, I know. And I think it also feels worthwhile now to have done that, because you will now take something that you really want to do, and suits you, and you would love to carry it on all your life.
Yes, definitely, ma'am. It gives a sense of satisfaction that whatever decision I took was good for me.
Right. And as I said, Kavan has been a student with us for a very long time. He did his foundation course, then for 2 years, and then
Yes.
he did his TND course, and he got a rank last year. So this year in the mid-year, he joined with us, and he called me up to see what options he
Options are
has.
there.
And then he took up the app-based TND.
Yes, ma'am.
So, this is where I will start from itself,
yes, ma'am.
Kavan, that how did you start your preparation from the middle of the year?
So, ma'am, I started my preparation in June, and I saw what are the options available. So, all the live classes, regular batch, face-to-face TND, they all start somewhere in February and March.
Yeah.
So, if I join that, I would miss some of my subjects. So, I saw the app TND schedule. It was starting from first week of June. So I had just missed the physiology, one subject initially when I started, but then I covered that up. So I thought that since I have done regular coaching and face-to-face TND once, and my rank last year was also good, so I was clear with my concepts to a greater extent. So I thought app TND would be helpful for me to sit at my place to tailor the approach of completing the syllabus in a short span of time. And along with that, I wanted a deadline. So app TND would provide you a schedule or a deadline. Otherwise, you tend to get lazy, and the subject gets extrapolated. It doesn't get over in the stipulated time which you calculate. So app TND or any course rather would definitely provide you a timeline, and it will help you complete your first reading in the adequate amount of time, so that you have spare months for 2 or 3 revision.
And I think there are a few things that he's highlighted very, very nicely. Number one, that a schedule always helps. Right? Because doing it by self, you may not always be motivated, and you would leave things for later. So the schedule ensures that you're on track. So that is one thing that everybody should know, that having a schedule to follow is always helpful. And the second thing he said was that he knows that he's done the classroom program and he's done it well. So his concepts were clear. He's achieved a good rank. So he was not trying to, reduce his work, but he knew that this would suit him best at this time. So that is essential, because you cannot counterbalance your concepts and and application sitting by yourself. Once you're through with it, then yes, it makes a difference to revise things on your own. And I would want you to comment on maybe initially on before we go on to the exact strategy, about the quality of the app TND that we gave last year.
So app TND, I think last year was the first time when it was introduced.
That's right.
So it was I saw the duration and the format in which it was made, because there was an introductory lecture by Dr. Sumer where he highlighted the key features of app TND. So I realized that app TND may not be that extensive as face-to-face TND, but it ensures that it covers all the must-know topics, must-know points, and the recent updates for subjects wherever it is applicable. Plus, the test, when you give it, the another feature is whenever you open it again, you can attempt the test. So sometimes, because I have done face-to-face TND last year, we have a paper, and I used to mark the answers in paper only. So second time when I take that paper, I already see the answers, so I cannot reattempt it. But on the app, you can reattempt it again and again, and you can selectively listen to the content or question from the faculty's explanation video. So that helps a lot.
Now another thing I want to ask, wo doubt sabke man mein aayega, Kavan, that last year you gave NEET and you did very well. Right? And this year the paper pattern was completely different. So now I want to ask you, do you think that the change in pattern will affect someone whose concepts are clear and knows the theory well?
Actually, the change towards which the national board is heading to, it is going to benefit those who are conceptually sound, and it will massively cause problem to the people who are just mugging up and who are just focusing on the facts. So concepts building not only during your internship, but from the first day of MBBS. I tell this to everyone who talks to me, that the journey of NEET PG starts from the first day of MBBS. It does not start from the first day of internship or third minor or third major. So the more strong you are conceptually in all the subjects, the better it would be. And now the trend is towards the clinical questions, towards integration of subjects.
That's right.
That highlights a very important fact which every doctor should remember, is that you are not treating a subject, you are not treating an organ, you are treating a human body. And when a patient comes to you, maybe a patient coming to an obs-gynae OPD does not necessarily mean he has only problem of obstetric or gynecology.
Very true.
So you have to keep all 19 subjects in mind, and you should have that open-minded approach that this patient might have comorbidities, he might have findings which may lead to some other diagnosis, or which you should consider as a clinician.
Right. And I think that's very, very aptly said. And I don't think I have to add something to the importance of integrated and conceptual learning, right? And now I really want to ask you, Kavan, that when you started preparing early. And do you think that early preparation has an advantage?
Definitely, ma'am. Early bird always gets the best food. So I started in my third minor, because when I was in my second year, towards the end, at that time NEET PG was made compulsory for entrance. So anyways, I could not start before that. So third minor was the most earliest time where I could start my preparation, and I joined a foundation course in first and third final, where I primarily focused on making the notes and understanding the subjects properly from entrance point of view. Though we study during our prof years, but the major advantage of attending the classroom coaching, is that you get the insight of how the subject and the topics get framed into MCQs.
Right.
Because
approach.
Yes, the approach changes. When you write an answer, theoretical answer, or when you give a viva in your exam, it is quite different from MCQs, because in MCQ you have 4 options. You have to first decide which subject it is, then you have to rule out options, and you have to integrate the things also. So that approach you get through the classroom learning. And in each and every exam, there are certain topics, certain subjects, they are focused more, certain areas are emphasized more by the examiners also. So that idea you get only from classes. And the most important thing is, when you are in your college, you are in a small shell, you are in a small well of maybe 150-200 students. But when you attend coaching class, you realize that you have to compete with 1.5 to 2 lakh students over India. And this itself gives you a kind of motivation also, a slight pressure also, but this pressure is required for pushing you towards performance.
Yeah, that I agree. And Kavan, also, when we talk about starting early, does it also help in sort of in your professional years itself to understand the subject, and it makes it easier to read the standard textbooks as well?
Definitely, ma'am. It helps in 2 ways. First thing, in many of the colleges, most of the topics and lectures are not taken, maybe because of time crisis or because of certain issues. So coaching during early years will help you cover your prof exams also very nicely, very conceptually. I still remember that before joining coaching, when I used to read Park for PSM, I used to feel that what is this? I never, it never appealed me, and I was always feeling that I should not read this. But once I attended a PSM lecture, I understood the beauty of epidemiology, what is the logic behind screening diseases, what are the community health programs, why are they framed, what is biostatistics, what are the concepts. And then thereafter, when I went to read the textbook again, I found it much more logical, much more appealing and interesting. The same holds true for clinical subjects also. Students initially find Harrison, Love and Bailey, Robbins difficult to digest, but once you are clear with the concept, once if you have attended Ranjit sir's lectures, or if you have seen his videos, the way he teaches pathology, after that I don't think any student will find it difficult to read from Robbins.
And it's always good to read those books, because it's like a reinforcement, and you're strengthening your base. So it always helps in the foundation years to do the things in an integrated way.
manner, and it helps develop your multimodal approach also. Even
That's
it
right.
improves your senses, because when you are listening to a faculty, your auditory learning is improved, but when you read from textbook, your visual memory improves, and you get to see the images of standard textbooks, and these images are taken directly from these books into exams. So
Yeah.
you will find images of Robbins, you will find images of Bailey, Harrison, and you will find line to line questions from the Park's textbook.
Right.
So if you have not read these textbooks, then it will definitely add a demerit in your preparation, because these textbooks are the sole source of knowledge for everyone, for students also, for faculties also,
Yes,
to some
I
extent.
think he's very right, because even when we formulate our lectures, we ensure that we are teaching from standard textbooks, because that's what even we have done, and that ensures that the quality of teaching stays up to
Improves.
mark. Right.
Yes,
And and also the reason is that, when the child goes back and tries to read, he finds that things are same, and it's easy for him to or her to comprehend.
The things. And for certain subjects, there is an added advantage. Like for minor subjects, we don't usually read the extensive textbooks. Like for psychiatry, I don't think anyone would have read Kaplan. Or
Yeah.
for OBGY also, Williams, no one would have read. But those who teach, they have read. And when you understand OBGY, the way it is given in Williams, and plus the practical experience and knowledge of the faculty gets added to it, then when you read your conventional textbooks like Datta or
That's
other
right.
books, then you will find it making more sense. They are not wrong, but they have just made it a bit short and precise, so that
Yes.
students can reproduce it in exams.
Not just that, even in the language, because
Yes.
most of these the language used in the foreign or foreign author
Authors.
textbooks is not very direct.
Direct.
So it becomes difficult to interpret things as well from a
Yes.
paragraph a lot of times, which you learn
Eventually,
gradually.
with practice.
Right. And now, Kavan, coming to your strategy this year. So what was your strategy to get such a wonderful rank yet again?
So if I talk of this year particularly, so I started at in the June, and initially my focus was to follow the app TND schedule. Whichever subject was there, I used to read the notes of that subject first of all. Then I used to read my TND notes and DVT notes of last year,
Okay.
and then I used to practice MCQs as per the time which is left.
Okay.
Because I knew that my app TND paper itself is of MCQs, and it includes the high yield topics.
Right.
So MCQs was my third priority in preparation for the first go.
Right.
And thereafter I used to attend the app TND. In the stipulated time, I used to attempt the questions honestly, not by looking anywhere else in the source. And after attending, first of all, I would review the paper myself. By seeing the answers, I would see that what kind of mistakes I have made, and then I would go to hearing the video explanation. Whatever extra points are there, whatever approach is taught by the faculties regarding solving a particular topic or a question, that I would keep in my mind. Extra things I would write it in my pre-existing notes.
Right.
I firmly believe that students should have only one source in which everything should be compiled at the end. You might be using DAM's question bank, you might be using DVT. You can have separate notes, but from question bank, from test series, some students make separate notes for everything, and then during revision they are confused that what to read and what not to read. So I would suggest that you should compile everything in your mainstream notes only.
And I would just add one little
Yes,
point
ma'am.
here. He's absolutely right. You should add it in one place, but I would just add that use a different sheet for these extra
Yes.
information.
Yes.
So that you know that the primary was the
Notes.
and this is add-on. So
Added on.
whenever you are trying to read, before you go to add-on stuff, you have to
Yes.
ensure that the basics are
Basics
clear.
Clear.
So maybe on a colored sheet of paper, you can put
Definitely,
it
ma'am.
separately,
Definitely.
so that you know what is the primary thing and what is the add-on that you have
Add-on
done.
stuff. Yes, ma'am. So this was how I used to prepare. I did my first reading from June. I started late, so it got over by September.
Right.
Thereafter, I targeted 2 revisions this time.
Okay.
Last year, I did 3 revisions.
Yes.
This time, I again did 2 revision. And from September to almost October end. So 2 months I did my first revision,
Okay.
and then from November and December I did my second revision.
And what were you primarily using for your revision?
So for revision, ma'am, my strategy was very simple. Whenever I used to read my notes for the first time, I
Okay.
used to highlight the most important things in it,
Okay.
which during the class the faculty has already highlighted.
Right.
Plus, whenever I have added certain high yielding facts or updated information, then those would be kept in a separate color pen. So I would have it in my mind that this is also something which I have to revise. Second thing, in the process of giving tests, after the test, I always analyze my subject and I see that what are my weak areas and strong areas within a subject.
That's
So the
very, very good. And I think that is what has made you come up yet again.
Thank
your
you, ma'am.
strength weakness analysis.
I would like to talk about it. You will ask further also.
No, you will go ahead by yourself.
So in the weakness, I would like first of all target the weak areas of a particular subject, and especially those weak areas which are high yielding.
Right.
Because maybe there might be certain weak areas, but they are never asked in exam.
Yes.
Then no need of bothering about them.
Very, very important point.
So my first priority would be weak areas, those that are high yielding. Then my second priority would be my strong areas that are high yielding.
Wonderful.
Then there would be weak areas which are less important, and then my strong areas which are relatively less important.
So I think something that I can make out from what he's saying is that despite the fact that whatever he was doing, I think he was doing it very mindfully. It was not just spending hours and hours on study. It was a very mindful study to understand what he needs to do first, setting his priorities
Yes,
right,
ma'am.
and then sticking to it.
And second thing, after the test, what I used to do was I had my own GT scorecard,
Okay.
where I used to write the date, the test, my score, my right attempts and my wrong attempts. So I had that scorecard which will help me evaluate whether I am progressing or not.
Yeah.
And I used to classify my mistakes into three parts. One, conceptual error, where I knew the topic but still I made the mistake because of some conceptual lacking or shortcoming. Second type of mistakes were those which was totally a new information for me, which I did not know.
Right.
And third was the silly mistakes, where everything was easy, question was easy, but because of some haste, because of lack of presence of mind, I made a mistake.
Right.
And then I had a different approach for each of these three types of mistakes. If I find that in a subject I am having more of conceptual mistakes, that means I need more conceptual clarity regarding that subject.
Absolutely.
So I would like to see some additional videos posted by faculty. I would like to maybe, if possible, attend some session of that particular subject and try to gain the conceptual clarity again.
Right.
For new stuff, if relevant, I would add it to my notes, and if I think that this is a one-liner or a googly type of question, then I would just take it for granted.
Yeah.
And for subjects where I was making errors due to presence of mind or due to failure of recall, there I would target more revisions of such subjects.
I think the clarity with which you've prepared is something that we have to learn. And
no,
if
ma'am,
everybody
I have learned this from you
no,
only.
this is very important because you have to know what you are doing.
Yes,
and then only you will meet your cause, right? So this is great.
And I would stress that it's even more important to analyze the test rather than giving the test.
I agree.
If you give the test and don't analyze your mistakes, you will never improve.
That's so true. And then, Kavan, I have seen you that you are a very active member in the Facebook club, even
Yes,
this
ma'am.
year.
Yes, ma'am.
And I was seeing how wonderfully he was using it. He was asking specific queries from the APT&D paper,
Yes, ma'am.
some images, some even things that we have said, given as an explanation. So how would you, what would you want to tell about that part?
So
About your doubt solving with DAMS?
So I think club is a very accessible platform, and the best part of it is the faculties are so prompt in replying that sometimes you don't even have to wait for 5-10 minutes. You just get the reply instantaneously.
Yeah.
And by having such an accessible platform, there are two things. One, definitely your queries get solved, and second thing, you always feel that your faculties are around you.
Yeah.
So you will always get that mental support that no, they are here. They are posting not only regarding subjects but so much of motivation also, so many good thoughts also. So by seeing the club itself, there is a very good and healthy refreshment. But one just thing I would like to say here is sometimes I see students making maybe unconsciously, but their time gets wasted in club. How that I would tell you, because that happened with me also initially. I used to open a club to post my query, and then I used to see queries of other students, and then my mind used to start wandering over those subjects.
That's true.
And then I will actually forget that I have opened the club for a purpose.
So very important. I think you have to make it coherent. That's what he's trying to say.
It should be targeted. So what I did was, throughout the day, whatever queries I get, which I feel I should ask on club, I will just note down on a paper.
That's
and at the end, in night before sleeping, I would post it.
And you usually you'll get the answer by morning as
Yes,
well.
so we'll get the answer by morning, and you won't get distracted also. And the first thing what I would do is open the club and post my query, then I would see other posts.
Right.
Otherwise it just gets a bit of distraction.
This agreed.
And sometimes students tend to ask so hi-fi things that we feel that oh, people are studying so much and we are not knowing also regarding these topics.
And
So
since you have picked up this point, I will really want to ask you, Kavan, आपने पिछले बार का भी NEET दिया है, इस
Yes.
बार का भी दिया है, and
Yes,
you've done exceedingly well.
thank you, ma'am.
I want to really ask you, was it because of the unusual and vague and things that you read, or was it because of the basics and your integration and revisions?
So after last year NEET, ma'am, I gave November AIMS also, in which I got 106 rank.
Which is again very, very
Thank
nice.
you, ma'am. And then I gave this NEET. So one thing what I realized is, the most common things are asked, what is clinically seen. Those are the common topics that are asked. And if you have to choose an answer, you should choose the common things first. You might have two options, out of which one is a common condition and the other is a very rare condition.
Yeah.
If I have to make a guess also, or a smart choice between the two, I should always prefer the common one.
Agreed.
And if you do it, then you will commonly be selected.
That's wonderful. So yes, uncommon things give you uncommon ranks as
Ranks,
well.
yes,
and
ma'am.
You have to you don't have to burden yourself with a lot of
things.
information. You have to get to the information which is high yielding and do it on a repeat mode.
Definitely, ma'am. And the greatest fact which you would realize is, the topics would remain the same. The questions would also be similar. If you have practiced extensively through the tests and question banks, you will find the exam paper will have topics and questions quite similar. They would just be slightly different. There would slightly be a change in maybe some history or maybe in the options. But you will definitely feel as if you are giving a mock test, or you are solving a question bank again.
Right. And now coming to your strategy in the paper, Kavan.
Yes, ma'am.
Something about how many questions you attempted, in which way did you go about your questions that you left for review and things like that. Those 3 hours, because I think they matter a lot.
Yes, ma'am.
And you have to be really, really in the best frame of mind to sort of do justice to your preparation.
So the day of exam is very important. Right from the beginning, you wake up in the morning. From there to your exam, when you start at 3:30 p.m. So I had 1 or 2 things in my mind as a part of strategy. One was that I would attempt 50 questions in 30 minutes, no matter what.
Okay.
So if I feel the question is a bit lengthy or maybe difficult to understand, that in the first go I would just mark for review and let it go. But my primary target was to complete 50 questions in 30 minutes, so that I have 30 minutes for review at last.
Right.
This was the first thing. Second thing, when I saw the paper, I started with part A. I realized that in part A also there were clinical conditions, there were clinical scenarios, maybe simpler ones, but yes, they were there. So that just gave me an idea that the paper is going to be more of clinical, and that I just predicted one more thing, that if part A is like this, part C is likely to be tough.
Yeah.
So I would have to have more time for part C. So I tried to complete part A and part B a little bit quickly, and then when I came to part C, I realized that the questions were a bit odd, lengthy, and with confusing options. So then I tried to invest a bit more time on the questions, thinking about the approach and solving them. And at the end, I had 15 minutes for review, in which I reviewed around 30 to 35 questions, bookmarked questions. And one more strategy which I would like to share is, when you are keeping a question for review, make it a point to at least mark one option.
Yes, mark and review.
Because in NEET paper, the marked ones are converted into
Counted.
they are counted for score. In AIMS, it is not so.
So if you leave it for, if you don't mark it
Mark
and just
anything,
put
it
it
will
for
just
review,
it will just go away.
Yes.
And sometimes it happens that unconsciously in the first go, whatever you mark, that is actually correct.
Yeah.
So even if you don't get time to review, some of those answers would definitely turn right.
absolutely, your first instinct is most of the times correct.
Of the times correct.
Right. And how many questions did you attempt, bache?
This time, ma'am, I attempted 299 actually,
Wonderful.
which I feel that seeing the paper this time, I feel it was slightly an over attempt, but because of my habit of attempting
No,
more
but I think we've talked to a lot of toppers, and most of them have gone aggressive in their
aggressively,
approach.
because the gain for correct response is much more than the negative marking.
Right.
So it is good to be aggressive, and definitely you should target 290 plus at any cost.
Yes, I think most of them have done these many questions, barring just one person who attempted, I think, 285 or something like that. The others have all done it in 290 range.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. And now, Kavan, if somebody asks you, because you are a successive topper, right?
Thank you,
So
ma'am.
what would be just the right mix of things to get a good rank?
So first thing, as we discussed, was the schedule. So schedule not only in studies but in your lifestyle also, it is very important. It is important to have a fixed schedule of waking up, your hours of study, your hours of sleep, the time you eat, the place you sit and study. All these things matter in your preparation, because your mind is conditioned in that way. So those who are having a habit of afternoon nap, you can make it a point that in those hours of 3:30 to 7 p.m. you are not dizzy, or
Yeah.
you study in those hours.
Yes.
And another thing I would stress upon is, whenever you study, you sit for a study session, make it a point at least to have 3 to 4 hours of a continuous session at a stretch,
Yes.
because that is the period for which you have to sit continuously in
The
exam.
exam as well. So trying to mimic the
Exam
way it is going to
pattern,
be.
it is very important. Second thing, you should always have a plan. First of all, you should have a gross plan of your preparation, like by when you will complete your first reading, then when second reading, third reading, etc. First revision, second revision, third revision. That gross plan should be there, and then you should have a day-to-day plan which should be tailored according to your necessities and your conditions. If you
Right.
are pursuing it with internship, then all days will not be equal. Sometimes you will have more duties, sometimes you will have less duties. So you'll have to tailor your individual day, everyday approach, but your gross frame should remain the same.
Right. Great. And anything motivating that you would want to say?
So, ma'am, I would just say that NEET is definitely doable, not once but twice also. It is
Yes.
doable. And
Hats off to you for that.
thank you, ma'am. And you should just have faith in yourself and in from the faculties from which you are studying. There is no need to go for multiple resources, because ultimately the content remains the same, the subject remains the same. You should have faith over the faculties from which you are learning, and you should have a directed approach. Whatever they suggest, whatever they plan for you, you should follow it blindly, and you should just do your best. And after exam, if you feel that I have given my best, then no matter whatever result you get, it is success for you.
Definitely. And Kavan, what branch are you going to pursue now?
So, ma'am, this time I am decided to pursue radiology, because it integrates all the subjects.
Yes.
And it has a lifestyle advantage also. So I would like to go for radiology.
Definitely. And I am sure you're going to be a great doctor.
Thank you,
right?
ma'am.
And I wish you a very, very bright future ahead.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
ma'am.
so much, Kavan, for coming once again to share your strategy. And I'm sure it's going to be very, very useful for people
Pleasure is
listening
all
to you.
mine. Pleasure
Thank
is
you,
all
and
mine.
God bless you always.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Kavan.